What does Bob Iger's master plan for Disney look like? That is the subject of this conversation. And I'm joined for this conversation by Ralph Tribbey from DVD and Blu-ray Release Reports. Ralph has been covering media and media trends for decades. He has worked for multiple studios, both as an employee and a consultant, and he's been reporting on physical media sales since the birth of the DVD format, the very inception of DVD. He knows this stuff. He understands how studios operate, how they think. Listen, it looks like Disney is burning down. It looks like everything in the Disney company is on the decline. It looks like Disney is in decline. We're talking about hundreds of millions of losses on streaming. We're talking about a declining theatrical model where less people are supporting these movies, which go straight to the streaming service and don't often hit physical media. How many shows does Disney have as Star Wars shows, Marvel shows that aren't on physical media? Ralph believes that all of this is evidence for Disney and Bob Iger burning down everything that they can to bring in cash flow to achieve their one ultimate goal. What is that goal? Total domination. How does burning things away achieve total domination? The evidence is incredibly compelling. That's just the tease for what you're going to hear in this conversation. It's concerning, it's interesting, and I think we're watching something happen that I don't know if we've ever seen anything like this before. We are entering into a brave and dangerous new world, and Bob Iger is leading the way. So without further ado, Ralph Tribbey. Ralph, welcome back to Cereal at Midnight. It's so good to talk to you again.
Good seeing you. It's been a while.
There's a ton to talk about. Disney, is Disney in decline? What's going on with Disney?
Yeah, let's just focus on Disney because it is in a sense it's a microcosm of what's going on across the board, and there's a couple of things you really kind of have to just accept. Even though you may be watching this and you don't believe it, but you just have to accept streaming is everything. People are cutting the cord and they're going from what they see being managed for them to being like an old Chinese restaurant where they give one from column A, one from column B, one from column C. And so they're now managing what they watch when they want to watch it, whether it's free ad support fast, or whether it's on demand, subscription on demand, like a Netflix or something like that. Once you accept that, then the logic of what's taking place makes sense. Number two, in connection with everything being streaming is a religion. Whether the witch drowns or whether the witch floats, the outcome's always going to be the same. Streaming will be the focus, and it's a religion. And if you understand it's a religion and everything else is expendable to accomplish the goals of what they see, and what the prize is that they control what the consumer is seeing by getting fees and revenue, ad revenue or subscription revenue, and whoever controls the top of the hill has that. So what they're seeing is 120 million households spending 100 a month, 200 a month, 300 a month, whatever the number is, flows their way. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't go out to the movies or go out to eat dinner, but when we're talking about content in the home or on your devices or on your computer, it's all about streaming. So
but streaming is losing money. They're losing tons, hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right, exactly. But it's who wins. Now, to have a little graphic, this is Walt Disney Studios, and Bob Iger's up here in the front here of this, that John Hodiak character, and he's steering Disney. Now, cutting quickly to it, go back to May 10th, the earnings call of May 10th, and the roadmap is all there for you to see what's happening right now. On May 10th, there are three things that took place. One is Iger says we're going to increase the monthly fees for Disney Plus and Hulu and probably ESPN Plus. So this last week, boom, increasing the fees. Number two, when Disney bought Hulu or bought Fox and spent $71 billion, they inherited Hulu as part of that. And they immediately sat down with Comcast, which was the other partner in this thing, and worked out a deal where in early 2024, they would buy out Comcast interests, and they arrived at a price of $9 billion. So at the May 10th meeting, Iger goes, I want to conclude that deal by the end of the year. I want to take Disney and Hulu and combine them together. So he needs to come up with another $9 billion in cash to execute that. You can see where this is going.
Yeah.
I can't remember her name. Her last name was Kelly. I can't remember her first name, but she was running Hulu. The moment this deal is done, she's out, and she goes over back to Comcast and launches Peacock. The third thing that took place at the May 10th meeting, and this is the real critical thing as to understanding what kind of insanity that's going on right now, is that Disney CFO Christine McCarthy comes out and says two things. The first one, and I'll pull this up here just to quote it. She said that the line that caught me was strategic changes in our approach to content curation. Now that's chilling if you think about it for a second. What is exactly that going to mean? And then she concludes literally in the next breath by saying, as a result, we will be removing certain content from our streaming platforms. Keywords, streaming platforms. And that's when they burn these 50 films, which got us upset.
Right.
You're burning art. It doesn't mean that this doesn't take place all day long. I mean, you book you're a company and you book an asset for, say, just to keep it simple, a movie for $20 million, and you're going to amortize it over 20 years. That means every year you write off $1 million of that value. That's standard accounting. There's nothing wrong with that. What McCarthy did with this statement is she took these 50 films, and instead of 20 years, they went like that. And that means they can't monetize them anymore. The films don't exist anymore. They're literally being burned. Now, it doesn't mean 20 years from now, after whatever period it is, whatever the law is, that can't be resurrected, but no one's going to care 20 years from now. Mm-hmm. So what they've done is take these assets, and this is all, when it all comes down to, is cash flow. Now, what she said at the time, she floated at the time, was 1.5 billion to 1.8 billion is going to be the write-off. Now, McCarthy is a banker. That's where she came from, how she got to Disney. She's been there a while. She's very bright, very smart. She is credited with organizing the Chapek coup. She went to the board of directors, got Chapek out, and got Iger back in. Well, guess what? 5 weeks later, she suddenly is pushed out for family reasons, and she's gone. She's a banker. Bankers don't make $600 million rounding errors. So they knew then, when they're standing there in front of the press and doing this conference call, that $1.5 billion was just being floated, that it was a number significantly higher. And the reason that Chapek is doing this, I mean, not Chapek, but Iger is doing it, is he's generating cash flow. So just like the lifeboat, if something needs to get pushed overboard to cut overhead, generate cash flow, it'll be done. Great example took place yesterday. I couldn't believe the headline. No physical media for Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Instead, they're going direct to streaming, multiple platforms, VOD, on August 29th. And the reason for that is it's immediate cash flow into Disney, because they've got to, he's got a goal. He's been assigned a 2-year goal to do certain things. That means any division that doesn't meet that goal, that's expendable. any asset that will generate immediate cash flow, boom. He says he's going to cut $5 billion worth of overhead. That means your job, unless you're absolutely necessary to get the gates to the theme park open, you're gone.
I just sent you an article today where they've closed Disney and Lucasfilm have closed the visual effects and animation studio in Singapore. That's gonna free up. I think they're gonna fire upwards of 300 people, is what it looks like.
Overhead, cash
Yeah,
flow.
yeah, okay. Well,
So
help me understand here. So the goal, your theory is that the goal is to bring in cash flow for the Disney plus Hulu merger, but I don't understand why that's so important when their streaming services continue to hemorrhage money.
well, he spent, or he didn't, but Disney spent $71 billion buying Fox. And if you look at what they've done precious little with
Yeah,
those assets to
almost
this
nothing.
point, which kind of leads you to believe that the Disney Hulu merger could be clear the decks and then begin to put things back together. Once you've got the main platform, the streaming, if you accept that streaming is the goal of everything, put the streaming platform in place to be competitive without all these other things. Now he's got to figure out what he's going to do with ABC. Do you really need a 1950s network? Do you really need ABC? But who's going to buy it? What's he going to do with FX? What's he going to do with National Geographic? All these cable channels.
ESPN, you think that's on the table?
Well, you can see the trend with sports is to have these packages, like the NFL package, or the baseball package, or the Big Ten network package, whatever, all these packages. So why would you be having a basic cable channel where you're relying on advertising revenue if people are cutting the cords and they just want to watch things that they want to watch? You almost see that sports is going to be on demand going forward, and that the days of watching stuff free are rapidly coming to an end. And there's going to be maybe some consumer backlash, but I don't think they care.
I think that's something that we see a lot, is that the public just doesn't really care. I mean, even the headlines, the Hollywood Reporters bearing the lead on their reporting.
Yeah, let's get to that.
Okay.
Because they announced this last week, and the headline was that Disney had cut their streaming losses year over year to just $515 million.
Just a few hundred million.
Exactly, but they conveniently left out what McCarthy had said only 3 months earlier, that these write-offs they were taking, this 1.5 billion, which turned out to be 2.4 billion, were streaming platform costs. So Disney didn't lose 515 million in the last quarter. They lost 2.9 billion in the last quarter. And the trade press didn't, you can understand why. I mean, you don't want to piss Disney off.
Right.
Your bread and butter, Daily Variety.
And I've been trying to get somebody to come on here and talk about what's going on with Disney. Nobody will touch it with a 10-foot pole.
It's because you don't want to piss the winners. Somebody's going to win. I mean, if the studios were smart, I thought I saw something the other day with Warner Discovery actually approaching Paramount about teaming up and doing stuff. But the first thing that either Disney or Warner need to do is to sit down with Sony and Lionsgate and say, hey, and this is why I think the Disney Plus and the Hulu platform merger is where Disney's going with this. Mm-hmm. Is the same thing that Warner Brothers did by the merging all the Discovery, Max and HBO and all these things into one platform. So Disney's doing essentially the same thing, and Iger wants to speed it up, but he needs the cash flow to do it, which means literally everything's expendable to accomplish that goal. You look at the insanity, the cult of the cult religion of streaming, and you're going, some of this stuff simply isn't rational.
Yeah.
But when you're all fighting for one thing, to be the dominant player at the end of the day, you will do what is ever necessary to get there. And that's what Iger is doing right now.
Is there anything to the rumor about the whole Apple buying Disney thing?
I think that story, it was so convenient that story was floated on the day that they were reporting out the earnings. I think it was a plant. Why would Apple want to buy Disney? Apple is making tons of money by selling phones where people are sitting there doing this all day,
right?
Getting their endorphins, their immediate fix. Why would they want to get into this mess?
Well, I think why people believe it, or why it feels like it has credibility, is because it seems like these companies just want to continue to grow and get bigger, and they're devouring everything that they can in service of getting even bigger. And that sounds like that's what Disney is doing too. So I guess my question is, if we could put on, like, if we look into a crystal ball, so okay, Bob Iger achieves this. He successfully merges Disney Plus and Hulu, and they have so much stuff on the service. He has now become a major player. I mean, they're already a major player in streaming, but they're a titan in streaming. I mean, what does the future look like? What's the next?
Once he accomplishes gets just down to one big streaming platform with lots of content, then you can start to put the other pieces back together again. Now, that's another reason why you don't see any movement on the SAG strike or the writer's strike, is because they don't want to go back into production right now, because that means putting out cash for series and stuff. So let's just let them burn through the summer, because Zaslav came out a week ago and said they've already saved $100 million.
Right.
So
yeah,
it's hard to say, but I think the Titanic war is going to be between Warner Brothers and Disney, and Iger's making the moves to try to ensure that Disney is one of the last two standing. So don't be surprised if both Warner Brothers and Disney start to court Lionsgate and Sony and say, hey, stop selling your product to that little company over there called Netflix, which both of them are doing, and both of them have been profitable. They were both profitable in the last quarter because they're not in the streaming business. And we'll make it in your best interest. Is there something we can do? Maybe synergies, with Stars and some of these cable things, when we put together a bundle and put this whole thing out as a separate company or something. I mean, there's lots of things that they can do. And so don't be surprised if that's the next move, is to begin to court the other studios and to stop supplying product to Netflix, because that's the thing that's driving them crazy. The other thing is they're going to have to go cash in hand to South by Southwest and all these other film festivals, because Netflix sweeps in. They sit down with the producer. Producer says, well, I spent $20 million on it. And Netflix goes, we'll give you $50 million cash all in. It's ours. That's what they're doing. That's where you see these films coming from that are suddenly showing up on Netflix, big budget. I mean, it's not rational, but Netflix is winning the battle because they're generating huge amounts of cash flow. And he still has the ability to do what Disney did on even a bigger scale. So they need to start thinking a little smarter than they've been. This free-for-all fighting is insane. You can see where this is all going.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place.
Physical media, I don't know.
Yeah. Who knows? I think that's a good place to leave it. Tell people.